So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to NETLORE episode 6, right? This is 6.
Yeah, this is 6.
Perfect. Well, just the other day, I was spending some of my free time reading Wikipedia like a total fucking dork, and I ended up on the page for cybersquatting. Do you know about this? I'm more familiar with the general term domain squatting, but I guess cybersquatting is like, I guess that is a more catch-all sort of, it covers other things besides just URLs and whatnot.
I only know about domain squatting. I don't know anything about cyber squatting. Like, what else it could mean?
I guess it just sort of also means like any sort of like it doesn't have to be a domain. It can just be a username on like on a website or inside of a game or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of I thought it might make for an interesting NETLORE discussion episode just because, not that we're all super strict on what constitutes like an appropriate, theme. We're not, everything has to be about the net, but this one is definitely, it fits the bill, I should say. But yeah, so specifically, it's not a crime just to register a domain that's like, similar or that might become desirable one day. So what actually makes it cross the line into being a crime is when you try to profit off the goodwill of someone else's trademark. That's what makes it criminal activity, but I'll get more into that in a bit.
Is it like copyright infringement, basically?
Yes, exactly. It's copyright, and this is the kind of thing that has to be taken to like a civil court to be argued over and determined there. But obviously, most of the time, the goal is to just sell back squatted domains at an inflated price, and it seems like a stupid thing, right? To be like, who cares about this? But it's like, I don't know, the right URL is actually like worth a lot of money. Like back in 2010, Facebook paid $8.5 million for FB.com. So there's money to be made. I mean, if you're one of the people that was early enough to have registered some of these early on in the internet's lifespan, apparently back in 2014, Z.com sold for $6.8 million. That could have been you. Not you, Bernie. You're too young.
Imagine being a millionaire because you registered a single letter domain.
Exactly, and there's only so many of them to go around. Right?
Only 26, yeah.
but yeah, that could have been you, viewer, if you had just thought to register Z.com back when the internet bubble was, first blowing up. But that's not even the craziest one. Apparently, this is to my knowledge the most expensive one was back in 2005. LasVegas.com sold for $90 million, but not all at once. It was an initial payment of $12 million, followed by monthly payments of $83,000 for 36 months.
Oh my God, it's like a loan. It's like, who bought this?
Yeah, exactly.
Who bought this domain?
You're never going to believe it. Vegas.com bought LasVegas.com.
What is Vegas.com?
It's more of like a, general sort of tourism-y sort of site, but still, so they had to pay $12 million, followed by $83,000 for 36 months, $125,000 a month for the next 60 months, and then $208,000 a month until June 30th, 2040. So they're going to be paying that one off for basically, the next 17 years.
Who is that guy? Who is the guy who owns that? Like the original?
I have to admit, a lot of these, especially the single domain name or the single like letter ones were got up like super duper early on. A more recent example would be these two Australian knuckleheads that bought TikToks.com for $2,000 right after TikTok launched, correctly predicting that the app was going to blow up. And apparently they were offered $145,000 by TikTok's parent company for the domain, but they turned it down because they wanted to like leverage it into some kind of, follow for follow business. And they also registered like growtiktok.com and tiktokcharts.com.
Oh my God.
But eventually they had a case brought against them, an official legal cybersquatting case, and they were forced to turn over ownership. So
they should have taken the money.
Exactly. This is why all squatters, I mean, not all squatters, but like, your general stereotypical squatter, they're looking to settle with these big corporations or whoever that they're targeting. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't know. These guys were kind of crazy for thinking that, obviously there are going to be a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic. You'd be surprised the amount of type-in traffic on the internet.
They were trying to sell like an influencer course.
Yeah, they were literally doing dumb shit like that on their like, similarly, close, but like the type of domains your grandma's gonna accidentally type in or something. But it's kind of crazy that like you can even just get away with that because there's so many URLs on the internet. It feels like all the good ones have been taken, but there's so many potential ones out there.
Does Google own all the mistypes of Google? Like, do they own Goggle, Google?
I believe at this point they are big enough that they own most of those. Yeah, I'll get more into like typo squatting in a second, but yeah, it's kind of it's like this is sort of the little main intro point I was trying to get at, which is that cybersquatting is like it's so stupid. It's like you think about it for 5 seconds, you're like, what a stupid thing. But like clearly owning the right domain, you know, at the right point in time, because the timing is very, very important, as you'll come to find out. It can be very lucrative, which is just so funny to me to imagine being
it's like such a con man.
Exactly. You're like a cyber squatter. That's like your whole career, like your job.
This is like a Saul like scheme.
Exactly. Like you'd have to be like a slightly more tech bro-y kind of Saul, just be running this like cyber squatting bullshit. At least back in the early days, I guess it's become a little more mainstream and like automated to the point now where it's like, obviously I'm sure they have like bots who can like scoop up bullshit like this now. But it's crazy to think that the point I guess I was leading into is that squatted domains obviously can be used for other malicious activities besides just trying to sell back like a phishing sites. I'm sure people have had to deal with like people trying to trick you with emails like here's a super similar URL you wouldn't even notice, or obviously in addition to phishing you can have like viruses or malware or adware injected on these sites. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do that's like the courts don't look too kindly on it, like even just stuff like redirecting traffic to like a competitor, or even just stuff like setting up a site so look at the typo, so you can use it to harvest emails of like people. You can get a general get a list of people who are interested in a certain subject matter because you own like the domain name with one letter off. It's a weird ecosystem. Again, I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I feel bad because I had to do a lot of reading about tech stuff and a lot of reading about legal stuff, and I'm not an expert on either. And I know there's like actual podcasts out there, people who are like super intelligent on at least one of those aspects.
Well,
but
they can suck it because we're gonna buy all their domains and force them to come on our podcast.
We're gonna pivot, and it's gonna be a purely cyber squatting based podcast from now on. We're gonna give you all the URL domain names to squat.
Yeah, this is a business pitch. You're suggesting this as like our next move or pivot.
It would be quite the profitable endeavor. I feel like I feel like every point in history people have probably had the same thought almost, which is it's too late to get into it. But I feel like it's just kind of like it is kind of too late to get into it at this point.
There's a sucker born every minute, guys. Start cyber squatting now.
It's crazy to think this. I barely even got to do any research into this aspect of it, but like other languages have to deal with their own bullshit when they're dealing with this kind of stuff too. And there's all these other different things with like top level domains, so that you can use to trick people. I mean, there's so many different ways you can use to like trick people. It's crazy. I mean, there was a bunch of the techniques listed, so I mean, it's not like these are secret hidden jutsu techniques or whatever. But even if you can't like preemptively register the exact domain you want, because obviously that's the main goal. It's just preemptively registering things that might someday become popular. And then you didn't even have to like do anything illegal to like or like trick people really. It's just like you were in the right place at the right time. But obviously, like I mentioned, typo squatting where you have a common misspelling. It's there's a lot of different ways to go about it. You can either just like remove a letter, you can add a letter, you can do like swap to, and there's like other things where you can register a homophone, so it's like it just sounds the same. And as we discussed, tacking an S on to make it plural. Those so yeah, there's just all the things you have to think about now when you're registering a business or something. When you're registering your own website, you're like you have to get all these little neighboring websites to prevent people from like I think this is a pretty common practice called like warehousing among like bigger and corporations. This is a known issue that people have been dealing with for pretty much since the internet existed. You know what I mean? That's what I think is interesting, that this is just like a never-ending practice that's like constantly going on, and you can fight back against it, but I don't know if you can ever really truly solve something like this.
If you have enough money, you can.
I guess, yeah, exactly. If you register, like I said, you can try and trick people by doing different top-level domains, or like for different countries, like or just like .org or .co.uk instead of .com.
Dude.
It's
okay,
crazy.
So
I'm into it now. This is gonna be my whole new personality. I'm gonna become a typo squatter.
I just realized because as a bit, I was going to live on podcast buy cybershell.com and then taunt you at the end and say that you're never getting it back.
Oh, yeah. That one's definitely taken, though. I can guarantee that one's such a simple.
This is taken. I went to this website. It redirected me to notificationsupdate.com and says, your Apple iPhone has been hacked. All operations on your device are being tracked by the hacker. Immediate action is required. You're advocating for something people have done to you.
I know. This is sort of what I was getting at, which is just like there's so like it's such a common practice. and stuff. People don't. I mean, I guess I don't know. Again, like I'm not claiming to be an expert, but it feels like the internet is like everyone just connected all these sites with the hyperlink, but there's like an ocean of sludge of like scam sites and these like typo squatted bullshits like that aren't really like linked to in many places, but it's like there's all these bullshit sites. Any like possible combination of words is gonna have to be like parked on by some company or something. It's kind of crazy to think about. There's definitely no chance we can register like netlore.com. I mean, there's some crazy other top level domains we could get. Have you seen some of these new fucking top level domains that have been coming out? They're constantly coming out with new ones. We can register netlore.gay. That one's probably available.
Oh my god, dude. I had a huge list of like domains I wanted to register like that, but I probably can't read these out.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say anything you say on the podcast, someone's immediately gonna go grab as a gag. But Google, I swear, this is just recently, Google has made shit like .zip and .mov, like .move, as like, yeah, those are gonna be real like website top level domains that you can register. Fishers are gonna go crazy with those ones. Like, what are they thinking with that shit? Who wants .zip as a website?
Dude, you can get pony.mov. Yeah, you can buy that domain.
Yes, I don't know exactly. I'm not an expert on buying websites, unfortunately. I should just go through this whole process just, for the hell of it, just for a NETLORE episode. But yeah, there's gonna be some crazy shit. You'd be surprised. Like, this is another Wikipedia page I was reading. List of internet top level domains. There's some good ones on there for real. But yeah, it's crazy just the amount of sites there are on the internet. That's not even really the point I was trying to make, but really when you think about it.
If you're a fan, buy cybershell.gay now.
No, don't be buying that now. Be a good podcast listener.
Redirect it to don't redirect it to our page. Actually, redirect it to gay fan art that you've drawn of Cybershell.
If it's funny, then obviously it's covered by the First Amendment, and therefore I can't take it down. So of course that's the number one method to go.
Make one of those like expose pages, like Cybershell is secretly gay. Cybershell.gay.
Owned. But yeah, I gotta say, I've just been interested in these like weird like phishing tactics. Like there's one where it's called the doppelganger domain, where it's spelled correctly, but you're just missing a period, or you secretly add in a period, so it looks like almost like perfectly identical. Okay, here's one that fucked me up because I wasn't even aware that this was a thing that people could do. And look,
you got fished in the process.
No, I just found an interesting technique on Wikipedia. It's called the IDN homograph attack. So it's something kind of clever. Is that
what is that?
There's alternate alphabets, right? Like there's the Latin alphabet, the Greek alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet.
Oh,
yeah, that's why it's called the internationalized domain name homograph attack, and takes advantage of the fact there are certain alphabets that are like identical or basically functionally identical characters, but they use separate Unicode numbers. Like there's actually an interesting little chart I have saved. Again, I got this off Wikipedia. This is the Wikipedia special, but there's like this is like the shared characters and letters between these different like alphabets, and you can see like the overlap between the Latin small a and the Cyrillic small a. It's almost identical. Okay, so this is why I was posting that those two A's in chat just below and above it.
I thought you were just spamming.
No. If those two A's, they look the same, right? Those are two different characters. You can paste those into Google, you will get different results for each one. But they actually kind of look a little different on Discord. You can almost sort of see like there's like a couple pixels, but
one's a little smaller.
But you have to admit, no one's gonna notice that if you just slip that into URL. Luckily, you can't just do that. Okay, the people who made the internet, these fucking eggheads, they're kind of smart guys. I gotta say, I gotta take my hat off to them because they were. This was like as I said earlier, this was a known issue. People were kind of aware about this. Like most modern browsers have built-in protections. Like it's easy to tell if you're trying to enter a URL with like mixed characters from multiple languages, and it just won't like take you to a website like that. But yeah, it's just an interesting sort of way to. That's just that's what I'm saying. These are just ways I didn't even know about that you can use to trick people online. Like tricking people online is like it's the final frontier of making money, basically.
It's the most fun you can have online, guys. If you want to scam someone, you need to start tricking people.
I guess it is. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're not going to be if you don't have the balls to ideologically grift people, then you can just try and trick them manually by using like typo squat websites and bullshit.
Try to trick some old grandma and basically exploit her like failing vision to think she's going to Google when she's actually going to your fake recreation site and logging in so you can take all her retirement money.
Right. But sort of looping back to what I was saying earlier, it feels like the internet is like so saturated now. It feels like all the potential good domains have already been like scooped up. So it's like the modern frontier is cybersquatting is just like getting names on social media, right? Like Twitter and Instagram, you know what I mean? That's a lucrative business.
Yeah, that's a whole nother industry.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's sort of like a subsection of domain squatting.
I used to know some people who would do that shit, or who were in that market of trying to buy like these rare usernames, like single word usernames. Like there's like a lot of them on Twitter. You'll see they'll look specifically. It's like, oh, I can get the username like woman or incel or virgin or just some funny like single phrase or like fetus. It's like really weird, but it works because they can end up growing their platform off like this notoriety and just sell it for fucking money and do like promos. Like people make money off this somehow.
Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot of stuff like you've just been the first guy on a website, you can register like John or like Chelsea or just some common fucking name. And then like those just become inherently valuable as people, want them. And like you said, especially, like I said, with so many different domains and URLs and like Twitter, like handles already taken, the more shorter and easy to remember, that's better for your brand or whatever you want to call it. It's actually like, that's sort of what I was thinking about the other day. I think that's how I ended up on the page for Cybersquatting, which is I don't have a fucking invite to that Blue Sky website. And I'm like, God, someone's going to fucking take my username. I just know it. I'm at that perfect level of D-list E-celebrity where half the time I go to register the name Cybershell on some new game or website, it's already taken by one of you fuckers. And I'm only mentioning it. I know mentioning it, whenever you mention something like this, you're just gonna make the problem worse. I've already just accepted it in my heart. And I actually prefer not even going by Cybershell as my handle when gaming online, to go incognito as it were. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like back in the early days of the internet, like people just didn't understand like what the internet was. They didn't give a fuck about it. You know what I mean? You could just get away with anything. And there was like no legislation on the books. You know what I mean? There was this insane article I read on Wired. It was actually published in 1994, and you still read it on Wired.com, by Joshua Quittner, and it's called Billions Registered. And basically, this was back in 1994. He called up McDonald's and was trying to explain to them, like, no one's registered McDonald's.com. Do you understand? Like, anyone can just go register that. Like, your competitor, Burger King, could register that and, like, have it redirect to their website. Like, this is something you probably need to get on. But, like, they just wouldn't listen to him. And then eventually, like, he literally registers McDonald's.com, and he just owns it. Just some guy. And then he was, like, using the email Ronald@McDonald's.com or whatever, which is just crazy.
That is a fucking amazing email. I wish I had that.
I know, right? It's hilarious. Eventually, he just agreed to hand it over to McDonald's, the whole domain, if they had paid a few $1,000s to like set up computers and high-speed internet at some high school in a...
Can I get an infinite amount of McNuggets forever?
Exactly. Dude, that's what I would be leveraging. That guy was he was a chump for giving it up for just some charity.
For free, yeah. You could get unlimited McChickens forever.
But this was sort of the dilemma I was referring to back at the beginning, which is that you don't want to push these big companies too hard. This was in the early days of the internet. He might have been able to get away with it, but who wants to go up against McDonald's team of lawyers? You know what I mean? It's usually, it happens though. It happens. In that same article, the one by the Josh Quittner, the McDonald's.com guy, he mentions another similar situation. Back in 1993, there was a guy called Adam Curry who worked at MTV, and he decided to register MTV.com as like his own personal site where he could be like the face of MTV online. And like the people at MTV knew he did this, like the higher ups at the company, but they didn't give a fuck. They're like, whatever. Who cares about the internet? There's just some nerd shit. He quit MTV a year later, but he still owned the domain, and he didn't want to give it up. He refused to give it to MTV, so they had to sue him for it.
That is interesting. That's a really interesting story.
He had this insane quote in the McDonald's article. Let me quote. He said this. He said, "I will fight this all the way," adding that the case would be the Roe versus Wade of the internet and the information superhighway. There's just no way that MTV has the right to my address. It's my address. Mine.
I want to do a video about that now. I want to steal that.
Apparently that same guy owned metaverse.com back in 1993, which is hilarious because I'm sure Facebook wants that now if they don't already have it. I didn't look into it, but like, it's just crazy. These just people would just speculatively like, oh, of course that's going to be something. I mean, maybe that's like a snow crash type thing, but still, I mean, it's crazy. Like people just didn't understand the value of these URLs at the time. It really was the Wild West. Kind of a dorky, dumb shit thing to say, but in a way it was the Wild West of parking these beautiful domain names back in the day. It was just chaos back in the 90s during the dot-com bubble. Eventually, there had to be this regulation set into place, established by ICANN. There's like the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, and like I had a section here where I was like going to go way into like the rules. And it's like basically you just need to understand that there became like actual laws on the books about this that people could use to mediate and regulate these disputes, as well as finally in 1999 they passed the Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act, or the ACPA, which would basically, I'll be referring to that a few times later, but that's sort of just the general baseline for determining what makes, like I said earlier, what makes it illegal illegal is when you intend to like use the goodwill of someone else's thing to deceive people for profit specifically is when you're not. That's when it's not cool. Other times, if you're just parking on it and not doing anything.
So you can do it to like bully them or like.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to get into that. There's that is covered under the First Amendment. There's a whole separate thing. The official term is called cyber griping. So actually, there was this other case back in 1995 where a guy registered PETA.org to troll, PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. He hosted some site called People Eating Tasty Animals, which is like, if this site offends you, you can just get out of here, with a link to google.com. And it had a bunch of links to like other different sites, which are like selling meat and leather goods, you know what I mean? That kind of troll site. But eventually, here's the thing. He lost that case when PETA decided to sue him over it.
He just owned PETA.com.
No, it's PETA.org. He tried to claim that he's protected under the First Amendment because the site was a parody. But because PETA had trademarked the acronym itself, they decided any site called PETA.org was automatically implied to be associated with the organization. Therefore, it's like breaching the rules. It didn't even matter what he put on the site. It was decided based solely on the URL.
I guess I can understand that. But...
Right. It was interesting, though, because that almost established like a precedent where it's like you don't even need to look at the content of the site itself. But another reason he sort of lost was because they found that he sort of violated the ACPA because he made statements implying that PETA should settle with him or make him an offer, and that was seen as being an attempt to profit off of it. But he did register and use the name before the ACPA passed, so they ruled that PETA wasn't entitled to any monetary damages or attorney's fees. All he had to do was hand over the domain. But there was actually another case 10 years later in 2005 called Lamparello versus Falwell. Back in 1999, some guy launched falwell.com, like fall and well, the two English words, to criticize evangelical preacher Jerry Falwell's homophobic remarks. The site was spelled slightly differently from Falwell's actual last name, and they were initially ruled against because they're like, oh, the name's too close, and it's diluting my brand. That's another thing. You're not allowed to dilute someone's brand with your cyber-squatted websites. But interestingly, this was a case where they ruled against the website, but then on appeals, they changed their mind and reversed the decision, and they actually ruled in favor of the website because they found that there was no trademark infringement, and it was a non-commercial use of the site, even if it was critical of the trademark holder, you know what I mean? So that sort of ties into the cyber griping angle where, as long as you're not trying to profit and...
if it's just purely to like deride someone, it's okay. But if there's any hint of trying to make money off it.
Right. That was just an interesting case where I guess they will consider the content of the site now. Another interesting case, I don't really have time to go deep onto this one. This is just crazy. If you go to Nissan.com, like NISSAN.com, it's a page about we've been sued by Nissan Motors. They're trying to take this website away from us because there's like this whole court case where some guy just named Nissan, like his name is Uzi Nissan. He's an immigrant. He started like a car company in North Carolina. He was been using this website and he registered it, 5 years before they even wanted to take it from him. And he'd been using it in like good faith this whole time. So they weren't able to take it from him. He's like, no, it's my website. I'm not going to give it to Nissan, the big car company. I'm going to use it myself. So it's just kind of crazy that like
shout out to that guy. That guy is that guy's cool.
Yeah, I know, right? He actually died from COVID-19.
What? What? He's dead? Did they get the domain?
I was just saying, I don't know. I guess his family, I guess whoever owns the business is still maintaining it. Maybe just the ultimate fuck you to Nissan. You'll never have this. You'll never have this domain. But props to them no matter what. But yeah, that's another one. There's just a lot of weird websites on the internet. Some of these are barely even related to like cyber squatting. But I found out there's a Gail.com, like GAIL, which is just some nice little lady's website that her husband registered for her as a birthday gift back in 1996. And he gets like a crazy amount of traffic from people typoing Gmail, but she just has no interest in ever selling it or doing anything with it. So there's like a little FAQ on there being like, hi, welcome to my website. You probably are here by mistake.
That's
or you
cool.
found it on fucking
That's
Reddit.
Sweet.
Yeah. See, those are the kinds of little websites I'm like, oh, that's, I don't know why. The big guy doesn't always win. Like I said with Nissan, for a long ass time, I don't know when this happened, but for a very fucking long time, whenever you went to like Steam.com, it was not related to Steam, like Valve, like the video game company. You have to go to SteamPowered.com for that. Steam.com was just like a little website that was like all it had on it was like, this website is not for sale, and like some like Steam pictures of Steam in the background or something. I don't know. It was just some goofy little thing. I don't know. Another fucking famous, I don't really know the whole story behind this one, but back when I was a kid, everyone knew you the perfect excuse was you try to go to whitehouse.com on the school computer lab, and then you get some porn website, and everyone's like, oh, I didn't know. I thought I was going to White House, the official website. I guess, I don't know when, but at a certain point they took that site down. That's why you have to go to whitehouse.gov.
Damn. Whitehouse.com was like being squatted on.
It was actual pornography on that website. It was crazy. Yeah, that's actually like kind of a big deal, which is like, oh, so there's this guy called John Zuccarini, and this guy, like, this was like his whole thing. Like, his whole thing was he was a full-time like domain squatter. Apparently, he had like 5,500 domains at one point, and he did
His like job.
Yeah, so this was like back in the early 2000s, and what he did was he just would have tons and tons and tons of typo squatted websites for like bobthebuilder.com and telltubbies.com, and apparently the son of a bitch even owned homestarrunner.com and homestarunner.com and homestarsrunner.com, so he's making it personal.
Man was a hustler, dude.
These are like children's media, or at least kid-friendly media, and on these typo squad websites, there were like hardcore pornography advertisements.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I thought he was just using it to scam people. I didn't know he was directing children to pornography.
Exactly. They basically had to make new laws to make what this guy was doing illegal, and then he was the first guy they ever charged under this. It was called. Is
he in jail? Was he put to jail?
Yes, I was gonna say he actually was a guy that had to go to jail because he violated the Truth in Domain Names Act, which is something they basically made just to get this guy, because it's basically like you're not allowed to be redirecting children into porn. Apparently, he was making like $1 million a year just from all these crazy bullshit domains. It's like insane. He was sentenced to 30 months, and I wish I could say it was all just because of cybersquatting, just because that would make a nice little bow on that story. But apparently, he was sentenced for 49 counts of violating the Truth in Domain Names Act and 1 count of possession of CP. So yeah, not a very cool guy.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah. Yeah, John Zuccarini. He also has a Wikipedia article. That's where I found out about all this crap. But yes, it's
that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say the kind of people who are cyber squatters. Unfortunately, I have to break the bad news. They're not actually epic and cool. They're usually skeevy pieces of shit.
What a guy. That's like such a unique guy.
Yeah, imagine having a Wikipedia article on you for like going to jail for directing kids to porn on your.
He bought like 100 million variations of SesameStreet.com, and then he was put in jail for CP. That's insane, man.
Yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
Whatever you do, don't do that to cybershell.com.
Stop. Don't register.
Do not do that to all the variations
do not
of
register.
cybershell.net.org with 2 capital I's instead of L's.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Do not make a website with no intent to profit, just to insult Cybershell, called cybershell.org. Do not do
if it's satire, I can accept it, as long as it's not trying to scam people in bad faith.
Do not make a website insulting all of his opinions about Sonic.
It's interesting, like the various cases. Like at this point, I was literally just searching, like, what are some famous examples of cyber squatting? And I think one of the most famous examples, if you know any famous cases of cyber squatting, you might have heard about this guy, Bob Kirstein. Apparently, he was a prolific domain squatter back in the day, and he brags about, he's like, oh yeah, I own domains like sick.com and broadband.com, dividend.com, streetmap.com, englishman.com, and womb.com. I don't know why he's bragging about owning womb.com, but he's like, there's information on pregnancies. Like womb, like a pregnant woman's belly.
I own womb.gay.
See, there's so many good websites you can get with just a handy change of a top level domain. Anyways, the point of this story is in 1996, he has the genius idea to register windows2000.com. And you can actually still find a few snapshots of the site, like back when he operated it on archive.org. So of course, a few years later, this is right after Microsoft announced that they're calling their new version Windows 95. So a few years later, Microsoft announces, yes, we intend to release the new version of Windows, and it'll be called Windows 2000. So they get in touch with him to buy the site off of him, and he actually been doing a good job where he wasn't just like parking it and having like, I'm gonna sell this. He had a little service where it was like, it's Windows 2000 because I have a bunch of webcams set up and you can view all over the world. Like he was using it in good faith, at least apparently using it in good faith. The point is, Microsoft eventually gets in touch with him and they work out a deal to buy the site off of him. So in addition to an undisclosed sum of money, a handsome reward for that, he also got the rights to bob.com, which is that's quite a get if you ask me. Bob.com.
He got that from Microsoft?
Yeah, the thing is, Microsoft owned bob.com because like a few years earlier, they had tried to launch this product called Microsoft Bob, which was a virtual assistant. Today, people probably best know Microsoft Bob for it's the project where the font Comic Sans came from. That's what it was created for, Microsoft Bob. So if you're a fan of Sans Undertale, you can thank Microsoft Bob for that, and Rover, the little dog assistant who talked to you in speech bubbles. And yes, that software was like the precursor to Clippy, the little paperclip bastard that everyone hates so much.
Rover was cooler than Bob.
Yeah, definitely.
Bob sucked.
Anyways, I just thought it was interesting how there's all this hubbub for Windows2000.com, which is a totally worthless URL now. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares about that at all.
I don't even remember Windows 2000.
I was curious, like, what's the deal with Bob.com Bob? So I looked up a few snapshots of that site on, I think it's down now. I looked up a few snapshots on archive.org. It's mostly just there to like promote his other business, Scripeaphilly.net, which is some fucking site where you can like buy old paper stock stock and bond certificates. Like, I don't know why you should be some kind of business dork, but you can buy like business leaders' autographs, like some old Standard Oil Trust signed by John Rockefeller from 1882, if that's what you're into.
Who visiting Bob.com would want that? Why isn't it like a cool site about a guy named Bob?
He does. Okay, so that's the thing. He does have like, I was interested in that. I wanted to see, tell me about Bob. So I went to bob.com/bob.htm, and there's some interesting facts like the websites he mentioned earlier. But to me, the number one fact, the one takeaway I want you to learn from bob.com Bob is that one of the sites he owned and like, operated was September112001.com, which was like a 9/11.
What?
Like, it was a permanent tribute page.
Wait, was this before or
after the fact? Like, again, I actually don't know the exact date, but it's just hilarious to me to imagine like fucking 9/11 happens and this dude's first thought is like, I gotta snag that URL. But yeah, it seemed to last.
Dude, imagine if it was before 9/11. Like, he predicted it.
That would be amazing. You're some guy grabbing dates on, just randomly entering dates and like pre-squatting all those URLs just in case some crazy shit goes.
I feel like something bad's gonna happen that day.
Whoever owns January fucking 6th.com probably has some hella real estate for Trump heads or whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's crazy. I definitely check out September112001.com on archive.org. There's some good shit there. It looks exactly how you would expect it to. But yeah, that one's a famous story. The other like really famous cyber squatting case that I think a lot of people would probably know about is in 2004, there was a legal dispute between Microsoft and a Canadian teenager named Mike Rowe, who registered mikerosoft.com.
Dude, where do these people come from? Like, these are like crazy names.
It's awesome. I mean,
Mike Rowe?
Yeah, like Mike Rowe. That's his name. And anyways, once Microsoft found out, they were like, hey, they sent him a letter. I don't know if it was a cease and desist or just like, give us this website. Please give us a website. Hand over domain control to us. And then he was like, no, I'm not going to hand it over, but maybe if you would compensate me for the website, I would consider handing it over. So their initial offer to him for the website was $10, which is, the cost to register the website in the first place. So he countered asking for $10,000, but also in addition to asking for $10,000, he decided to go to the press, and that garnered a lot of publicity for the story, as you can imagine, because it's very funny, and obviously it has that angle of like the big corporation going after the teenager, which is not a good look, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Does him asking for money, does that immediately like invalidate, like in court is like, oh, you asked for money, so you were doing this for profit?
No, because he was actually using the website in good faith. He had a little like computer thing going on. He's like, oh, I just thought it'd be cute to use my name, Mike Rowe, and then soft for like software. Like it's a homophone, but it's spelled differently. So I think he has like reason to ask for counter. Anyways, the point is they weren't even at a court state. They're just going back and forth with offers. So obviously all the media buzz generated so much traffic to Mike's site that he had to take it down temporarily and switch to another service provider. And he raised over $6,000 in donations for his legal defense. So after the shitload of negative media press, Microsoft was like, oh shit, let's just play ball. They softened their stance and they were able to reach an out-of-court settlement for the domain. And in addition to paying his legal expenses, they set him up with a new website. They even paid for him and his whole family to be flown out to some tech event at their HQ in Redmond, Washington.
Damn, they got owned that hard. They were like...
Yeah, they were like, no, we love you. We're your best friend. We're going to give you... And most importantly of all, they gave him a free Xbox and some games. And he actually ended up donating the money that he raised for the legal defense funds to some children's hospice. So overall, this is one of those, everybody wins type stories.
Good job, Mike Rowe.
That one's just so funny because it's like Mike Rowe soft. Like, I understand this, like, when you're a big company, you got to be proactive about these sites. You know what I mean? Like, I understand. Like, obviously, as we've talked about previous examples.
Yeah, who is accidentally getting to that site?
I know, but that one feels so silly and like it's so obviously not trying to imitate the website of it wasn't trying to spoof them or anything. It's completely different if you're trying to like fish someone or like hack them or some bullshit. You know what I mean? But anyways, you can still type in microsoft.com and it'll redirect to the official Microsoft.com homepage. So I don't know. There's so many of these just like URLs you never even think of. These companies own like hundreds of random shits. And the big ones like Google, you better believe they have like every fucking variation of that damn typoed shit. I'm pretty sure. Like I haven't manually checked, but yeah, I'm not surprised that especially the tech companies who are more savvy to this kind of stuff. Related to that, yeah, like I was saying, just another example was there's a guy who tried to spoof foxnews.com by making xofnews.com where he copied the whole site's layout, but he just had some bogus articles like about some miracle weight loss supplement or whatever. And that one, obviously, he had to turn that over because he was using that for capitalizing on their goodwill and trying to make a profit. But yeah, so you can still type in xofnews.com and it'll take you to foxnews.com. But sadly, it's not an epic Metal Gear Solid 5 reference. A lot of celebrities have also had to deal with cyber squatting cases, like obviously just famous examples are Jethro Tull, Sting, and Madonna. Madonna, apparently, she had a website on like Madonna.com, and it was like pornography, and that one was ruled like it was damaging to her brand, so that she was actually able to get that one down. Interestingly, Sting, I love the Sting.com domain name dispute is another good Wikipedia article. There was a guy who's a gamer, he's just a gamer who played like Quake online, and he was in a clan, and he used Sting as his like handle at an online game, so he registered the name for himself, and he was using it, earnestly just to, be like, check out my Quake clan, and he's, the musician Sting tried to like take it from him and sue him, and he ended up losing, Sting the musician lost, and the gamer got to keep it, and it was a big win for the little guy, except of course a few years later Sting would own Sting.com, because that's the thing about these big name celebrities and corporations, even if they don't win in court, they'll usually finesse some sort of out of court settlement, because who at the end of the day, once you're getting paid money and like how much thousands of dollars is it worth, like the name Sting.com is just worth so much more to Sting than the cool gamer Sting.
This is not super related, but have you ever heard of the story of MinecraftForFree.com?
I have not. That sounds like a perfect sort of like spoof similar type name.
Basically, there was this trolling clan called Team Abolition. Yeah, one of their friends was able to like decompile Minecraft and found a way to host the entire like full game on your browser for free. So I remember actually playing on this site. You could just play on it on like school computers. It was insane.
That rules. That's hilarious.
Notch like emailed them and was like, hey, can you take this down or else we're gonna like DMCA you or some, and like it was like a cease and desist, and they responded, we'll take it down if you beat us in a game of Quake. And this actually happened. You can find this on YouTube. They got to play Quake with Mojang and they lost, so they took down the site. Like
they
as
lost
part of their deal. Yeah, they lost. So
whoa, fake gamers, dude. What the hell? Fake
Mojang
gamers.
won.
That's so fucking funny. Okay, yeah, that should be a whole episode right there. That's a good story. Damn, yeah, that's a crazy.
Also, on the topic of like buying people's names, Martin Shkreli, I know he did this. So if any journalist wrote like hit pieces about him, quote unquote hit pieces, a lot of these probably weren't hit pieces, but what he called hit pieces,
right?
He would buy the names of the journalists' domains and then would redirect it to his Twitter account.
Right. Genius move, of course.
I think he had like at least 4 of them. I could be wrong, but he did this several times over.
They probably like got like 0 traffic, but he just did it to be like, fuck you. Such a dick shit move.
I think after the first 3 he got reported on, and then he bought the name of the person who reported on him.
That's okay. At least he's committed to the fucking
I think
bit.
they're all offline now though.
Right. I don't know. It's there's a lot of crazy shit you can do online. Okay, here's the final story I'll leave on tonight. It's not even cyber squatting related, but I found it through this Wikipedia journey, and I thought it was very interesting. I'm surprised it isn't more well known, but I guess there are a couple of videos on it. I didn't know about this, but this is the story of sex.com.
Sex.com.
Yes, you can find more information under the court case Kremen versus Cohen. This one, it's not exactly cyber squatting, but it is interesting, and apparently it's an important piece of early cyber law precedent, so that makes it unequivocally part of NETLORE, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I guess apparently, like I said, I'm not a legal expert, but apparently not much of this stuff was codified like into actual law, into like a relevant case could actually go on a trial, you know what I mean? Like they weren't proactively making all these internet laws, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but supposedly this was the case that officially determined an internet domain name is an item of property that can be bought, sold, and stolen. This all started back in 1994 where this guy, Gary Kremen, who's probably best known now as the founder of Match.com, he registered the domain sex.com, just, because he was like, that's probably going to be worth something someday, you know what I mean? He registered it with the company Network Solutions, but at the time he wasn't actively using the domain. He was busy focusing on building his business with Match.com at the time. So there was this other guy, Stephen Michael Cohen, and he wanted this URL. Now, apparently back in the 1980s, this guy operated a like paid bulletin board system for swingers called The French Connection and would host like swinger parties at his house in Orange County. And in 1990, he was arrested on charges of operating a sex club in a residential zone. Now, Wikipedia says he was found not guilty by a jury, but this 1999 Wired article says that the charges were dropped after he moved the club elsewhere, so I'm not 100% sure which is true there. He did not go to jail for it, but the next year, in 1991, he would go to jail. However, he was convicted and sentenced to 46 months for grand theft and check kiting, and apparently he was like posing as a lawyer in a bankruptcy court, like trying to swindle over $200,000 from some old lady's creditors. So yeah, 46 months in prison. So flash forward to 1995, Cohen gets out of jail. He decides he wants sex.com because he's a weirdo sex guy, and he identifies Gary Kremen as the owner of sex.com. So he begins a campaign to start sending fraudulent letters, emails, and phone calls to Network Solutions, and eventually something works. He faxes over a letter claiming to be from Kremen's company called Online Classified, stating, "Oh, Kremen, he's been dismissed. You can just transfer ownership of sex.com over to this guy, Cohen." And Network Solutions just did it. They just went ahead and did it. They didn't like double check the facts to make sure it was legit. They just transferred over complete control of sex.com to this guy, Stephen Michael Cohen. And even, okay, so this is a weird part to me. Even after Kremen realized what had happened and was like, dude, I never agreed to that. Apparently it's not as simple as just, ooh, whoops, we'll just transfer it right back to you. Because they were in litigation for this for like over 5 years. Cohen would remain in control of sex.com for the next 5 years, in which time he just crammed the site full of ads. And apparently he earned an estimated $100 million from all the ad traffic to that site.
Holy shit.
Dude, this dude was legit. He was literally going around with like a business card that had like sex.com on it. And it's crazy because he just stole this site from some guy for some complete bullshit. Like, I don't know how it's like, to just assume this was never going to get like, I guess he might have been onto something because it took him 5 fucking years to do anything about it. But okay, so as
was he found like in the wrong?
Yeah, eventually. There's a bunch of legal bullshit, but eventually, it took until April 2001 for the court to finally officially rule, Cohen, you have to pay $65 million to Kremen because, you jacked his site. However, he would completely refuse to pay the money, and then he would flee to Tijuana, Mexico, where he would live for the next 4 years. He was finally arrested in 2005, and the amount he owed was upgraded.
Sex.com.
This is all over at sex.com, right?
Fucking vigilante. Fucking
I know.
On the run felon.
Living in Tijuana, Mexico. Eventually arrested in 2005, and the amount he owed was now adjusted up to $82 million. But he still refused to pay any of it. And he just sat in jail on civil contempt for the next 14 months. And finally, in December 2006, they just had to release him from jail because, we don't have like debtor's prison. Kremen, apparently, the judge ruled that Kremen had failed to locate evidence of hidden bank accounts or assets. And so he just didn't get any of the money he was owed. To this day, he still owed.
What?
It's crazy. He just got away with it. Apparently now, there have been multiple various civil court cases that have ruled in Kremen's favor, like, oh, there's plenty of evidence that Cohen was using his family members, like his ex-lawyer, and like a bunch of shell companies to like hide all this money. But to my knowledge, he still hasn't been paid back any of the $100 million that he was totally owed, which is crazy to think.
Dude,
he basically just got away with it.
That's fucking insane.
Right? Isn't that crazy? He got away with it.
He was living in fucking Mexico, like Gene Takovic. He was like literally on the run. He was hiding under a new alias so they couldn't fucking take the money back. And when they actually did find him, it didn't even matter. It was all hidden away.
He just hid it away. Yeah, that's, I guess, they're doing all they can do, I guess. I guess it's possible there's been some more development, but I couldn't really find any info on this online past like 2012. But yeah, to my knowledge,
dude,
even if he has, I'm sure he's had to pay some amount back, but it's got to be pennies compared to, he made a fucking like $100 million off of that fucking sex.com that he just stole with a bullshit fax. It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's just, I would
be so fucking mad if someone stole that from me and then made $100 billion and then I never got any of it. I'd be so fucking pissed.
Yeah, Cohen rightfully, he sued Network Solutions in civil court and obviously won some kind of settlement, but it wasn't like $100 million worth. You know what I mean? It's just a crazy story, and yeah, sorry to people who expected to have a more climactic ending other than he got away with it. But that's pretty much how it ends. And yeah, that'll do it for NETLORE episode 6. A little bit of a shorter one, but I just wanted to talk about some
episode.
NETLORE.
Really
yeah,
interesting.
Right? I was just reading all this shit, and I was like, why am I just reading this shit? I should be like regurgitating it back on a podcast and educating people about the NETLORE. But yeah, basically that's it. That's all I really wanted to talk about today. And like I said, a little bit of a shorter one, but another good one for the books. Another good NETLORE. That's the whole point. Was they don't all have to be exactly 1 hour. Like we can go a little under, we can go a little over. We went a lot over on the fucking Penders one, so I guess nobody even has any expectations exactly. So I don't know why I'm like in my mind, I was like they all have to be exactly an hour long because that's the length of a podcast in my mind. But yeah, thanks for watching. Oh yeah, you dorks,
thanks
you dinguses.
Guys. Thank you. You got to end every episode with like a threat or an insult.
Threat and insult. I know. I love to say how much the audience, they secretly like it when you antagonize them anyway. So yeah, thanks for watching, you dumbasses. I'll have a bunch of links to various articles and pages in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching.
See ya.
See ya.